Hello everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Out of the Box Developer. I've been out for 2 sessions, right? I think last 2 sessions, if I'm not wrong. I was on vacation. Now I'm back, and full of energy and lots of different experiences I was sharing on the backstages with my friends here. But yeah, let's go straight talk about today's topic. I just want to say hello Pedro. I will start from here and then go down. So hello Pedro, how are you?
Okay, hello, Yogo, hello, everybody. Yeah, it's nice being here, and nice to have you here again, Yogo. We are missing you, but and yeah, this topic is always important. We have been talking to about some some career stuff, some AI stuff, and getting back to basics and talk about the REST APIs and all the things we do every day at work is always important. So let's rock it. And here we have some very important people about the
About
topic.
this topic especially, right? Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. I think it's good to discuss. Might be APIs, REST APIs might be present all the day, but it's good to discuss about the evolution of it and the problems that we had in the past. Because why we get where we are actually? Because we think that it just born like that, but no, there's probably lots of issues that was trying to solve it, but yeah, let's go ahead here and say hello to Chila. How are you, Chila?
I am fine. Hello, Hugo. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, welcome back, Hugo. Happy to see you
Thank
here
you.
again. And I'm looking forward to this tonight session to learn more about the Open API and how you can best use it.
Cool, great. And you, Luis, how are you, man?
hello everyone. I'm fine. Hey Hugo, we missed you a lot, and you missed a really great conversation about interviews with Julio Fairmont. It was a
Oh yeah,
really great chapter here, a really great session. But I'm really excited about the REST APIs because usually I'm teaching REST API with my students. We use a lot of Spring Boot to write some REST APIs, but I'm here to learn from you, and I'm really excited with this subject. Yeah.
cool, great, man. And you just mentioned Julio Furman. I was in Barcelona actually on this vacation, but I couldn't meet him because uh, I don't know if everyone's know, but Julio lives in a very a far away place from the downtown. So he lives in the middle of the forest. Really, how could I say? A very challenging place. And on the when I was in Barcelona, his car wasn't working, so he wasn't able to do anything because he can't get out from the home without his car. And unfortunately, I couldn't meet him, but I had an opportunity and great time meeting Thiago Bonfim. He was very nice, showing places on Lisbon in Portugal. Also, we talked and recorded a video I will be sharing in a near future. I'll be uploading the video and share here with you guys. But yeah, let me just say special thanks for Thiago Bonfim and hello. Hey Thiago, you'll be actually driving this discussion, right today, that you are a author or what writing and a book regarding to the APIs, right?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yes, last meet. Yes, missed last session because I was with Hugo. It was a really amazing moment. Really good to see you in person. And yeah, today we are going to talk a lot about REST And unfortunately, Igor could not join us. He's also writing the book with me and other authors. And the book is about REST, and we are adding a lot of things about REST and Spring, and also news from OpenAPI and Spring that we are going to talk on the end of this session. So I hope everyone enjoy. And yeah, let's talk a lot about something that probably most of us use every day.
Yeah, yes. And if you are watching us, yeah, please say hello here just to so we can know each other. And if you already worked with the, oh, there's some different noise sound. Hello, what's happening?
Quite.
You
Yeah,
talking to me? Yeah,
quite a strange noise, right?
strange noise. Yeah, I
It
have.
was
Well,
me,
I don't.
sorry.
I don't
It's
know.
not here.
Uh, but
Looks like
okay.
a ghost.
Yes, like a ghost or a pig. I don't know. uh, but yeah. So say hello with here on the chat. Place your questions. What kind of projects that you work that uses REST API? If you use Spring or Quarkus or any other web framework, it will be interesting to know. So yeah, from how do we start this discussion today? Tiago, do you want to bring some overview about REST APIs? How do you think it's interesting to start the
Yeah.
discussion here?
Yes, maybe before we start talking about REST APIs and maybe best protocols and how things are going to be on the future, maybe we can start with one step back, talking
Hmm.
about the bad things that we have already seen, and maybe we can get these bad examples and then talk about
Yeah,
how
for
to do
sure.
things and things like that. So I don't know if anyone wants to start talking about one bad example.
Uh, Writing SQL on the front end and get the data.
Okay. I'm talking more about REST, but yeah, this is also bad. But I'm talking more about REST. Like for example, this is unfortunately very common for really old applications that it's having a filter, and in the filter we do everything. So we have like if statements. Actually, if you wanna see right now the code of mock server, mock server it's a really big application for mocks. I don't know if anyone here have already heard about that. It's an open source application to create mocks, and it's very powerful, very good. But if you look at the code and go really deep on the code, there is some kind of one single filter class that checks, okay, you are doing this kind of thing, so go here, otherwise go to this method, and this is how the endpoints works. So, yeah, I don't
Just
know
kind of
if
anything else.
yes, I don't know if anyone have
But
another, because Spring does that for us, right? We have the REST
Mhm.
controller and then the REST map, the request mapping, and the other annotations, and then Spring does that for us. But at the end, it's this kind of thing, and have one single class with the filter. Yeah, it's not really good to maintain.
may I?
Go ahead.
Actually, when we think about it, it's interesting to remember that the when before Spring or when Spring was created, when we had this this big servlet that we called uh, this the servlet controller. What was the name? Oh my god, forgot the name of the product. Front front controller.
Model view
And
controller.
yeah, but there's a name for the specific controller. I think it's front controller. And this controller, when it was a servlet that receives all the requests, and then it routes for it everything it needs. So when we had like MVC, it's just routing for the pages, right? We had created and the very beginning of Java. But and then when we think about SOAP or SOA, SOA, we had all these method calls when we send in the SOAP method messages, and we had the name of the method we need to call. Every calls went to the same endpoint, and it's routed by this method that we had in SOAP. So yeah, not good to remember times.
Yeah.
I,
And the same, anyone in the chat, if you wanna also share some experience, some bad experience, go ahead.
it
This
was
is
bad
like
experience specifically with REST APIs, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Is that, Luis, I think you wanna say something.
yeah, this is like using get for everything. Like before Leonard Richardson's maturity model, like right?
Yeah, actually, SOAP it's post, right?
That
But
was
yeah,
exactly
for
what we
REST,
yeah.
usually it's only both post and get. This is was the most common before the maturity model. So yeah, I don't know if everyone have this kind of experience, seen only
Yeah,
these two methods.
Dan is here in the comments is saying Java servlets. Yes, exactly. That's what we're saying, man. The old Java servlets.
I'm
But
trying
yeah,
to remember some
and how about versioning? Have you
versioning.
ever
Yeah,
seen something
Yeah.
really bad about versioning, or not even having some strategy for versioning? Because this is also very common.
yes, yes. Versioning, I remember, but we instead of versioning the same APIs, we just created a new for the new version. It was only a big major version, so it wasn't not it was not so big concern. It was not a oh this API will be upgraded and the other one will stay. Uh, so in this case, I had less problems, but I remember that in the first moments we are thinking how we're gonna manage versioning of the APIs, and it wasn't so easy to figure out at that moment the best practice for that. That's good things that you remember that. Uh, what
Maybe
else? Yes, I think other things really common is that you mentioned filters, and when I have data that I need to be granular on the query on what columns I want to get from that data. Not everywhere I want every data. I just want some very specific columns. So I think also this motivated the creation of GraphQL that you can be more dynamic, but that also being always uh, um, a painful experience that you have to create some way, some mechanism to make it work. Usually, I do send a filter object that can specify the filter, so I can get back some specific data or specific columns of that data.
yeah, this is also very common for REST. Of course, GraphQL is created for this kind of things. However, we can also have some APIs that have this maybe fields parameter that you
Yeah.
pass all the filters, all the fields, and then you do the projection in your database or somewhere, and then you return only the data that you really need.
Hmm.
It's also very common. There are some big, for example, for telecommunications, there are the TMF, and this is a standard for creating REST APIs for telecommunications, and they try to add this kind of field, the the fields parameter, so you can
Mhm.
pass everything, every data that you want to get back from the API, because this is also another maybe mistake, returning everything from a REST
Yeah,
API, and then it's pretty hard to.
that was a problem, and like to get the single controller for every request, I think you lose the control over the data that you are exposing, right? and and that is a problem, because after that, after you do, if you do it once, you already doomed it, because you don't have control. If you take out any parameter, you don't know if someone is using or not. It's so that's uh, some problems when you go to this path, especially when you have to create public APIs, right, that other people can use it. So yeah, you're gonna be you're gonna have to think very well when you do that.
Can I ask something about that? If this selection of attributes of parameters becomes a pattern, can you use the DTO pattern, or it's not a good practice?
I don't know if you're talking with me or you, but I don't think there is any problem using DTO, because you can configure so all the no fields will not return the data. So the goal is to populate only the fields that you really want to. Actually, I don't know what to use, but it's very common also to use the if you're a Java programmer, using a plugin in Maven to generate the class from a Swagger file. And it's good that we start talking about Swagger, because we are going to go to this path, but we can still discuss a little bit more about some problems before going to Swagger and OpenAPI. I don't know if anyone have another question or example.
I think Dennis here on the chat, he mentioned a big problem was when a default value for a property that I was not setting changed. And yeah, that's true. And probably the same thing. I don't know if Chuck would add some comment here, but it's the same. Maybe if you are not using, it's the same idea of uh, um, oh, but it is that you use but was not setting. Okay, yeah, maybe that's different
Yeah.
scenario.
No, I think it is a versioning stuff. So you're using an endpoint, you're
Oh, cool.
setting anything, and then we're using the endpoint, and the version changed, and then the new version, this value is different, but the default value is different, because and then something changed behavior in your application just because you didn't set that value that defaults to something and now defaults to another thing. So this is a change, a version change in the API. It happens. It happens quite often, actually.
And that more difficult to track, right? Because usually when I see changes on the version, it was on the structure of the API, not exactly on the
Yeah,
data that you're sending. So
yeah. But
it is.
actually, it's a really difficult way to understand the versioning stuff, because when you
Mm,
change behavior, you're not changing the structure, right?
mm.
But changing behavior is actually a change,
Yes,
and
it is.
this is not and when you as a API developer change behavior of your API, it, it's a problem for your clients, right? Even if you don't change the structure, actually
Mhm.
even worse, you don't change the structure and you change behavior. What in your clients doesn't know what to expect anymore. So yeah, it shouldn't happen actually.
But it happens a lot, right?
But it happens a
All the
lot.
time. Hey, Thiago, since you mentioned Swagger, we can always talk about lack of documentation or poor documentation, right?
Okay, maybe we
Absolutely.
can switch this this thing and talk about the opposite. So, how about doing API first? Maybe you here on the chat, if you can please share if in your current application, your current project, if you do API first or not, and just do giving a really brief about that. API first mean that you start doing the API, so you can open, for example, editor.swagger, and you can start creating the documentation, the OpenAPI file, and define the endpoints, define the input and output. And after having this thing done, you can share that with the front end developers and also the back end, and both can work like together because both agree on the same contract that it is this documentation. I don't know, Luis, if you agree with that, and if Pedro, I think Pedro has a question.
No, I have an example. Oh,
Okay, okay.
yeah, I think I've worked in both sides, like creating the API first or creating the code first, right? Both has some, at least for me, what I like it when I have to create the API first was it helps on parallelizing work. When I did that for the first time, we created the API, all the schema using Swagger in our case, and when we finish, we look at it, and then we agreed with front end guys. In our case, front end was accessing our API, right? And then everything was okay. Front end liked it, the idea. Then the clients were generated correctly, and okay, cool. Now we can implement that. And then we start implementing, and the team gets parts of the API to work, and it was really cool. So when I worked the opposites in the opposite side, it wasn't that, it wasn't like that, because we didn't have a way to coordinate that, so we had to create that before, and then the front end could work after that. So yeah, uh, just one one thing in my experience. I like to use the API first, for example.
Yeah, of course, this always depends. Like Dennis share here on the chat that he usually does the database first. This is also something that happens a lot because sometimes you do not have the database and the model uh, already defined, and then probably you need to define first the model, the database, the schemas, how it will work, because the data is the most important thing. So yeah, maybe in this case makes sense.
Yeah, my experience is together with Dennis. Mostly, we do create data modeling first. It is the most complex part we have on the project I worked. And then one thing interesting about the front end application, maybe as you said, it depends because on our case, our team it is a small team for each project, and they are always two together, right? So it's so the front end team is not a big front end team that you have difficulties to communicate with each other. It is they are all together, so they talk together and say, "Oh, I will need this, this, and that," and they create a mock server for while they are developing the front end. And the last part is to the backend developer to implement all the APIs they already defined that they need. So, and yeah, I think it also uh, works well in our case. I don't know if I was curious to actually use the API first approach, but I haven't had any chance to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if Luis wanna share some experience because the bad part of not doing API first, and I'm not saying that doing API first it's the correct way because it depends. For example, if you have a team that everyone is a full stack, maybe you do not need that, or you have only one person doing the front and the back. Why do the API first? That makes sense. Uh, However, doing the API first, usually we usually have a better uh, documentation. I don't know if Luis wanna share some experience about that.
Yeah, I'm teaching Java backend, and we actually have to model an API and REST API. So, but first we have the model, then we have the API, and the last one is the Swagger, like in a more automatic way.
Okay, so you create the code first, and then you generate based on the code. So let me ask you a question. Usually, when you do that, do you add the examples for the input, the output, for the exceptions? How it works?
Yeah, as I said, the last part was the Swagger. So we can add the dependency for the Swagger web MVC, and then we add this information in the API. We have some annotations from the OpenAPI to add this information, but the examples usually um, we use bin validation, and the examples are semi-automatic from the bin validation. I don't know
Uh,
if you have seen this before.
yeah. Using Beam validation, you can have the validation. So, for example, this field should be uh, have between 1 and 10 characters or something like that. So yeah, it generates these kind of validations. However, it does not generate the example, right? The example, like for example, you have a field name. What means name in the field? Everyone here knows what's name. However, there are some complex uh, uh, for business and things like that. It's not easy to know what means some kind of field. So in this kind of example, it's very good to have an example. This kind of situation.
Yeah, in the automatic way, it will be string, string, string.
Yes. Yeah, not good. uh, yeah, and also maybe the same thing for the exception, I think, right? Uh, and talking about that, also, if you're doing the specification, you can also define what is the model of the specification. So, for example, if you are following the last guidelines, you maybe are using there is a RFC for that. I do not remember the number, but it's the problem detail. So it defines some required fields. So every problem, everything that it's an error, let's say 400 or 500, anything that it's an error, you throw this error following some fields, some required fields, like the description of the problem, the status of the problem, and some other fields. So following this also guideline, it's very important because if every error there is a different output, this is a chaos for those who want to integrate with the client, with the API, sorry. So yeah, again, if you try to improve the documentation, it's possible to do many things.
I think not just documentation, but probably if you start with the API first, it will help you with the design of the API, right? I think you start to have this how what kind of resources you will expose and how what patterns you will expose. Maybe you will reach this design in a better way. I'm not sure if it is possible on the very beginning when you have the less understanding of the problem. Um, But yeah, but usually you start from I don't know. I think it's the same way when we do TDD, and before starting to implement anything, you try to understand what is the requirement of that API, and then you will end up designing it first before starting to implementing it. But yeah, I understand when some of these advantages. I think it's the I don't know if it depends also on the person that is on the professional that is implementing how deeper he already understand the problem to be able to do start from that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's very important for if you wanna design the API first, you need to understand the business and things and how it works, how the domain works, because you need to understand what you are going to receive and what you are going to send back, so the input and the output. So I think it's not something that I don't know, Pedro, if you disagree or agree with that, but I think, in my opinion, in most of the case, it's not done by the backend developer. It's not a task for the backend developer. Usually, it's something done with all the team. So it's not one task for to be done only for the backend. It's not the backend
A
get
single person
the
at
whole API and say, oh, it's done. It's something that you need to check and understand. And okay, do you need this field? Do you need that? And how it works, how it should work.
Yes, because you have all those clients who require your API, and those clients know best what they require. The problem is when you have got many different clients and they have different requirements, how you synchronize those and create a common API for all of them.
Exactly. It's like we have stakeholders, right? This is when you're working on an API, you're not doing an API for yourself mostly. We're doing API for others. So an API is like a document. So if you create the API first, we can like work on this document like before we start implementing or while you're implementing. Not exactly at this point, but at least you can use this as a discussion point, and then we can get agreements when it, depending on the bureaucracy of your organization. It may take a while, and it may be like take take lots of discussion. I remember when I'm working on a big telecom company, creating an API and because we had an API that has a standard, right? So the API has a standard and it has some customization on top of the standard. So we had to discuss about the standard first, and then we could show our suggestion for the customizations on top of that. And it took me lots of meetings with lots of people from different places, you know, just to discuss the API we were creating. Yeah, I can say that it can be as bureaucratic as it can get. But of course, as we said, it depends on your case. This is what it would be like a telecom stuff that has standards and that has roles and has lots of companies working on the same thing. So and lots of different kind of clients that we would be integrating that. You can measure bank, you can measure telecom, you can measure all these big verticals that has this kind of standards. So in this case, working in an API first is not only a possibility, but it's a mandatory.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, it's sometimes it's so hard to change the API that it's the same thing as changing the database. The database, it's not something that should be done by a backend developer and he define the model and it's okay and it's done without talking with anyone. If this is the case, something it's bad in your company, I think. But if you are define everything alone, the database, the schemas and things like that, I don't know, maybe it's not so good. You should have at least more people talking about the data or if the company it's only you, so this is okay. But yeah, the REST API is the same thing. There are many companies that earn a lot of money doing REST APIs only. So yeah, REST API, it's something that we should take care and yeah, do it carefully.
There is an interesting question here in the comments.
From Dennis. Uh, when retrieving a resource and it is not found, when we return status code 404, the client may understand that endpoint was not found. The problem detail is a way to explain what happened.
Yeah, you can use that for to give more detail about it. Okay. For example, program detail, if you see the specification, I can search the RFC and share here. The program detail, there is some extra fields that you can pass these new fields and give more information to the client if it's possible. However, if you found a 400, I would say that. But yeah, I got your point. As usually 400 should be not found for the meaning it's the same. It's not found, so there is no element. There is nothing here. But I got your point. It's like okay, it's don't have the element or don't have the endpoint. But it should not happen this kind of thing in production or in pre-production because you know the endpoint, you have already done that in the other environments, but I got your point. It should not happen, but it can happen, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
because this is
right.
something that they return by the web server. So, for example, if you call some endpoint that we don't have it, the web server say, "Yo, this guy doesn't exist, not found." Right. So, and it's not in your application. You can treat that mostly.
Yeah, I have shared here, Hugo. I don't know if you can share the promo detail with the in the channel. But yeah, the
Yep.
promo detail have many fields that they are required. But again, you can also add some extra fields if you wanna, so you can have some more information. Let's see.
In this case, if there is really no content, the API shouldn't respond like the code 204 no content, or there is no rule about that.
Sorry, can you repeat?
If the API is responding uh, like no content at all, there is really no content. You should use the status code 204 no content instead of 404
Okay,
not
okay.
found.
This is a good one. Uh, the main thing is you should define what you are going to use in our API that you have. Usually 404 is the correct one because it means that there is no entity and it's an error for the client. The client pass an element that does not exist. So it's an error from the client. For X, it's error from the client. Uh, for if you use no content, you can use that, but usually it's done by APIs that you do not have content or you do not want to share content. Right? Not the case where there is no content for this element. But again, it depends. If you want to go with that, okay, but make sure you have these well documented and all your APIs follow the same standard. I think this is the most important thing. And if you see many big companies does that, they have guidelines. And I think having a guideline and following the guideline, it's one of the most important things.
I've opened here the uh, RFC that you sent. Do you want to talk a bit about it? About it that is shared on the. I share it on the chat, but it's
Uh,
so.
I would suggest we discuss more about the swaggers instead of this, because this is a really detail about the thing. But I think talking about swagger is much more important than this.
Cool.
We are not hearing you, Chuck.
I'd say that because you have shared, maybe you can only show the example, but it's like Pedro said, it's really simple. There is in the right in the table of the content, we can see the fields, and if you also search in the Spring, you can see that Spring explained also the things each field. So it's not really hard to understand the problem detail. But talking about OpenAPI and Swagger, uh, we're talking about we talk a lot about Swagger and OpenAPI, and we usually talk about both at the same time because sometimes it's hard to know the difference between them. I don't know if anyone wants to talk a little bit about that, or do you want to hear a little bit about history? What do
I
you
think
prefer?
Yeah, please.
earlier Swagger was the specification or something like that, but it has been changed. So OpenAPI is right now the specification, and Swagger is just a couple of tools, set of tools you can use for that.
Yeah, you are right. We have many tools from Swagger. We have the editor, we have the Swagger UI, and have other tools that it's not very common, but we have many tools. We have a tool to do diff between different versions and things like that. And yeah, what happened is OpenAPI now is not now. It happened after Swagger. The OpenAPI was part of Eclipse, no, sorry, from Linux Foundation. So it's a open source project. Uh, it's something for the entire world. So it's a something that should be used by our application. So every application, every company follow the same guideline, and following the same guideline, it's easier for every developer. And this why we have guidelines and standards, and this is what happens. And this starts on OpenAPI 3.0, if I'm not wrong, and it keeps improving. I think, if I'm not wrong, the OpenAPI 3.1 dot something was released this month, so it's still improving. However, the structure of the OpenAPI, it's not maybe the best one. Sorry, saying that.
Really?
It's not. Yeah, it's not
Uh,
the best one.
do you think it's
Hello.
interesting to share? Oh, my internet is. I'm. Do you hear me?
Yes,
Fine.
yes, we can.
Yes,
Okay. My video is. But do you think it's interesting to share this image from the that you sent to me, the history of Swagger and its evolution?
Yeah, you can share that. I think it's okay. And I'm going to send you another link that I want you to share later, please. So yeah, as you can see here, the Swagger start with Swagger, and then it was. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was a donation to the Linux Foundation, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think it was, and it becomes a totally open source thing and this kind of thing in 2015, as you can see, and then it start being part of the uh, Linux Foundation. I think it's Linux Foundation, if I'm not wrong. Also, uh, and yeah, and then it belongs and it started improving and being the guideline for every company that creates API. However, as I said, it's not perfect. And because it's not perfect, there are some improvements that are very hard to be done in this current version. And this means that we need another version, and this will be a break change. So Spring or OpenAPI 4.0 are being developed, and the goal it should be released this month of this year. I don't know, Yogi, if you can open the link that I share here. This new one, it's the OpenAPI Moonwalk, and as you can see here, the idea is to be released, the launch it by the end of 2024. If you scroll a little bit more, I think it's the second paragraph. Yeah, in the end, by the end of so this or next month. Sorry, I thought it was this month, but maybe next one. But yeah, it's as you can see here, an aggressive goal to launch that, and this will change a lot. The specification will change a lot, and will bring more features. For example, if anyone here have already tried to do versioning by the content negotiation, for example, uh, I think everyone here knows the site from Spring, the Spring starter, that we can start an application using Spring Boot. I think it's the second favorite website from oh gosh, I forget the name. Josh Long.
Josh Long.
Yeah, the second favorite site from Josh Long, if I'm not wrong. Again, I'm not sure if the second or the first one. I think it's the second. I don't know if anyone want to help me. I know that the third one now I think it's YouTube because he has a YouTube channel, but I think it's the second one. But again, I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, these Spring Boot application they start from Spring Boot use content negotiation, and if you wanna use content negotiation versioning with Swagger UI, it does not work very good. Okay, it's possible, but it's not the best experience because you are not able to deprecate it on API and use another versioning. So it's not the best experience. And maybe now with Swagger 4.0 with OpenAPI 4.0, this will be possible. And this is only one thing. So it will again change a lot. And this means that we will have a lot of work to do in the next years. I don't
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that they are planning this. Oh, they have this roadmap to upgrade and breaking changes. And yeah, one interesting thing is one of the proposals regarding to AI and large language models that need more semantic content over the API, so they can decide which API they should be using or calling. That's interesting detail I've seen here.
Yeah, but it looks like to me something that not many APIs would need. Or am I
Oh,
not understanding correct?
just to give a little bit of idea about that, having this 4.0, this will not be like a break chain actually, because probably they will provide some tool that we can have the things from 3.3, 3.1, and then just move to 4.0 and everything will be still working as the same thing. This will not be a break chain. You will not need to have another version for your API. This will not happen. You have more features. This is the thing.
mm,
So you'll be able to do more
cool.
things. So if you do, for example, API first, you need to know and understand how it works because probably now you know the objects and the elements that we have in the OpenAPI 3.1, and now you need to understand, not now, but in the near future, how it will work using 4.0 because it will change a lot. And if you do API first, I think it's a good thing to know.
Dennis shared, course is a pain when developing testing APIs.
Okay, this is a totally other subject, but we can talk a little bit about that because cores should not be a problem uh, when developing. Maybe if someone wants to use your API, this can be a problem, but cores, it's a way to protect, so you can define who can call your API, and it usually these kind of things happen when the client is the front end. So if this is the case, there are many ways to solve that. You can use Spring or maybe a gateway. So if you have some gateway, you can fix this kind of thing on the gateway and define in the gateway. Or you can also have some kind of maybe a load balancer or something like that. So the client, the front end, will be accessible from a domain, and this domain will also respond for the APIs. So the APIs will pass to the same domain, and then will be redirected to another uh, path, another service, another ingress, whatever, another thing. You have some kind of rules, Nginx or whatever, and then you can redirect to the correct path. And if you have the same domain, you do not have the course problem. I don't know if anyone is going to share something else about that.
I have a question about the other thing. Uh, Here in the we had a discussion here about if it's good to create when we use API first, we can generate our clients, right? Generate using some of kind of code generator, and there was a discussion about that, saying that creating code generating clients using code generator is not a good practice, saying that if you do that, we are like we are tidying our what can I say, tidying our APIs, coupling it to some kind of libraries or to some kind of version of libraries that these code generators use, and then it makes it harder for us to work on this uh, uh, to work with this kind of versioning and all the stuff, because you can imagine, for example, you are using a TypeScript stuff front end, and then we have some kind of versioning on the HTTP client, HTTP request client, and then it need to change, and then you can't because of the client, and so all these kind of things. What do you think about this code generator of clients? Do you think it's a good practice, or it's better to not use it at all?
Yeah, I think it depends. It's not a easy question. This is hard. But for example, let's say that you define your specification. So you have your API and everything done, and it's all right. And then you can use this plugin to generate the models. Maybe you do that, and I think this is very helpful. And then I don't see any problem to generate maybe the API, and then you can generate only the API, the interface, and not the implementation of the client, and not the client. You have the specification, and then you can use it in your controller, in your REST controller from Spring, to implement this interface that contains all the endpoints. And doing that, you have a clear way to have your API created and you know that it's working because you have the, for example, the get method, because you are implementing this interface, this get method, and because you're implementing that, there's already all the input fields, headers, and everything, but you are not using the generated client. I don't know if um, I was clear. It's clear or not. If you get the idea or not.
Actually, I didn't because
Because you can generate three things. You can generate the TTOs, the model. It makes sense. You can generate the client that will consume, right, another
uh-huh,
API, right? That it's what you
uh-huh.
said. That maybe it's not a good thing. And you can
Okay.
also generate like a dummy client. It's not a client. It's a client from your API, right? But
Mm.
you are generating only the interface, and you, because you have only the interface on the contract, you implement this contract, this interface, and then you implement because it's your API.
But it's a server, you say the server side. This third party is a server side, you say.
Yes, yes, it's yeah,
Ah,
it's
okay.
the
Got it. Got
application
it.
and not
The
the
application itself.
client. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, yeah. But I'm talking about only the client.
yeah,
Yeah.
the client, it's not easy. I think it depends. I agree with you. Sometimes using the generated client, we lost some kind of things. It's a little bit harder to do some things. However,
Mhm.
these plugins have been improving a lot. For example, if you wanna use the REST client, that it's a kind of new client. Um, I don't know if it was launched, I think this year, maybe REST client from Spring. Not
From Spring.
100% sure, but REST client, it's a new client from Spring because you have the REST template that you should not use. We have the web client that brings this kind of idea of doing things asynchronous,
Hmm.
and we do also have now the REST client that follows the same uh, Fluent API that has in the web client. And this generator already has the power to generate the client using the REST client, and you can also, you have in Java the constructors, and you can also define some kind of specification. So you can use your REST client, a bean that you defined the way that you want. So you can use the your REST client with some interceptors and things like that. And this is possible. So again, it depends. And the answer that I will give today maybe will not be the answer I will give in the future because these plugins it's keeping improving, and I don't know, I'm not sure. So yeah, it depends. But I agree with Peter. If you do not have control of it, if it does not give you value, if you do not trust, if you need to do something that the tool does not give you the power, maybe generating it's not the best idea.
Yeah. I've had problems with generators, but it was generators implemented internally from some other company that we inherited the project. That was much painful than than using something that is available in the market and follow some specification. Um, like I think I'm totally okay by using Open API, not OpenAPI, Swagger's solution, since it's known by many, it is available on open source, and you know that won't be. If you want to understand what's implemented, you can go to the open source project repository, and in the end, although it is automating stuff, it is a very specific or very closed scope. So okay, I generated it as a boilerplate, so I don't want to write all of these. I know that it follows what I need. It does create what I need. And then in the it does not work. So I will do it manually. It won't be I won't be blocked by I don't know, some they do some breaking changes that doesn't work anymore. So okay, I will keep creating the updating my client manually. So I think it's less harmful. Of course, depends on the on where you're gonna use generators. But in this case, seems to be more very specific, very closed scope. So you can be less concerned about, because in the end you will end up writing all of that manually if you don't use these kind of solutions, right?
Yeah, that's my point. I think at least the discussion here is uh, using these generators is not a bad thing for like in complete terms, right? Because if the generator is okay for you, like if it's using it
Mm.
is you can help your code and doesn't break changes for you or doesn't have any kind of issues in terms of libraries, okay. But the problem was there were some times that the new repos were using new versions of the libraries, and these
Mm.
new repos couldn't use the clients. So I think there is a balance here. When we
Mm.
if this thing is working for you, you can use, but it's not. It probably needs to go for to another solution, and creating the API first make it the API itself the Swagger file be the the main guy, the source of truth of your API, not the client, but the AP, the Swagger
Exactly. Yep.
itself should be your source of truth. So the client can be generated, can be put in a pipeline. If you don't
Yep.
use it, don't use it. If you can go to, you need to, if you want to go to directly to the Swagger, you can go, right? We had some problems with this thing, but we have some really goodness. For example, when we created a custom template for an Python for one of these Python APIs. Yeah, one of these the Python APIs templates, and this template added lots of monitoring part, like the Datadog tracing stuff or
Mm.
data, status, and all this integration, this integrating with our Datadog, like with our things up in our repo. So I think, and then we have like a client with everything. You don't need to you don't need to work on top of that anymore. You just need to generate and boom, it's already there. So there's that
Well,
good, that badness and goodness, right?
but one thing I was thinking funny is we are discussing level of automation on generating API and some concerns over that because of dependencies of updates. I'm thinking about people thinking, oh, the AI will generate the whole project automatically for me, and you don't even know what the hell is doing on the background. I think that's totally insane.
So you have a tool to generate the client, and you do not trust in this tool that does only that, and you are thinking
And there are
about
people
trust on AI to generate the
who
whole
generate the
project.
whole project.
Yeah, crazy.
And magically it works, but I don't know what's doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, much more magically. We're just talking about the generator that is. If you run it twice, it works exactly the same as if you run twice, right? No, AI, you can't say the same.
But the first time I was talking, I will. I started to talk about OpenAPI in my class. The students thought I was going to talk about AI because they
Open
thought it
AI.
was the same OpenAI, not OpenAPI. There is some students that still gets confused about that.
Get frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. Yeah, when he put like open API, now people gets confused. Yeah,
With the name.
Actually, when I saw OpenAI for the first time, I thought it was talking about OpenAPI. I didn't get frustrated actually.
Uh,
Thiago, I have a question for you. You mentioned that Swagger has a lot of tools. Um, does it take long to update these tools for the Open API 4.0 to use those new specifications, or that's not the point?
This is a really good question that I am not able to answer because the 4.0 was not launched yet. So because we do not have anything, we have some documentations, okay, about the 4.0. Some documentation and some kind of things about that, but it's only that. So I'm not sure if this will be launched this year. This is the goal, but as we saw before, this is a really hard goal. It's not easy. So yeah, again, I'm not sure because there is not defined yet. At
Yeah,
least not that I know.
a follow-up question about that. Uh, do
go ahead.
do you think it's something that we need to be aware, like prepare, or do you think this is something that we will only get to our doors like 5 years later?
Yeah, I think not 5 years, but yeah, not for now. I don't know, but yeah, something around years or many months. Yeah, it will not be something for tomorrow, because again, it will not break your API. Okay, it will still everything working the same thing. However, for example, if you have tried to do the versioning using content negotiation, maybe this is something that you would like to have, and maybe migrating to 4.0 makes sense. And this is only one thing, but there are many others things that maybe can help for both. Okay, for generating the Swagger UI, so you will be able to have more features, and also the generating client and things like that. Okay. I don't know if have already tried to use the the inheritance from an API. If you try to use inheritance in your API and have different kind of ways to different objects and inheritance, so you have, I don't know, let's try to use one. So you have uh, the animal, and then you have the dog, and you can return uh, different kind of animals. You can return a dog, or I don't know, fish that they have different attributes. You can do that. It's possible, but I miss some features. Okay, this is my experience. I miss some features. It's possible to do it if you wanna. You can use Mustache. The tool provide this kind of thing. You can uh, like intercept the generate files and do whatever you want. This is possible. I don't know if have already done that. I hope not, but it's possible. So again, I hope 4.0 have more things, and yeah.
Cool. I was sharing here the page of Swagger with the tools available for open source. The Swagger editor, Swagger CodeGen, and Swagger UI. If someone here never had chance to look at it, mostly I just use the Swagger UI because yeah, I do follow the same as Daniel shared here, database first, and and then we do create the documentation for the API. But yeah, it's interesting. I really want to try out. I don't have also these. We always have one client on the our applications for a single application, not a library or API that we are accessed by different client. So I think that's one thing may make sense for using CodeGen if you have to create the same client for different platforms, right? So I need to create a SDK for Java, for a client for JavaScript and Python, so you can use this kind of solution.
Yeah, we use this guy actually. That
CodeGen.
when I talk about, yeah, when I talk about code generator is this guy I was talking about. We use for Python and TypeScript.
Cool. Yep. So I think we already passed some minutes from our usual time to close. I just want to thanks everyone that was with us until now. I just want to say hello to Luciano. He shared a hello from Brazil. Hello, Luciano. Someone else. Glayton also sent a top here. Yeah. Hello, Glayton. Good to have you all. Hello, John. Uh, and yep, it was interesting to reveal to see some of challenges, and I think if you are watching since the beginning, I hope that you realize that everyone have problems with the project, the API to create APIs and maintaining it. It's always a challenge. It's always, as Thiago said, the best answer, senior answer for every problem is depends. It depends on your on the challenge that you are, the team that you are working with. But yeah, it was interesting to see some of solutions that everyone here shared and went through. Any last words that you would like to talk to say to everyone?
From my side, only thank you everyone. I hope you have enjoyed this session, and I hope you are also interested on knowing more about this new version. Again, it's not something that you need to know as soon as possible. However, knowing that uh, now or soon you'll be able to give you and to prepare you better for the future. So yeah, this is the way I think. So, yeah,
Thiago,
thank you.
Thiago, send your link for your book and show us how it's going.
Okay, okay, yeah, I have a post
Add
about
time,
that.
add time.
I can share. I have a post about that, and maybe I'm going to share more about that. And like Hugh said on the beginning, I'm also writing a book about REST. So maybe on the near future, we hope to release this book maybe this year. So in the near future, maybe I can also talk a little bit about that, and who knows, maybe also share a copy. Uh, we can see. But I'm going to share here a link. I have a blog. I'm posting about that and other things. So I will post here, and maybe you can share. I have a post about this 4.0 and also other things, main things that we talked here. So how you can do the versioning in your API, how does big company does versioning. It's not the V1 in the URL. This is not the only way. There are many other ways. If you see Microsoft, they recommend maybe using the carry parameters. Like I said, Spring use content negotiation, so yeah, it really depends many ways to do things. So yeah, thank you, Pedro, for uh, remembering that thing. So if you wanna stay tuned, if you wanna stay tuned about that, you can subscribe for free, and I'm going to post more things about this kind of things.
Cool.
Oh, so you have a newsletter
Yes, yeah,
about the
it's
name,
kind of blog
newsletter.
Nice.
newsletter. It's
Mhm.
similar. I do a post every one per week.
Wow, that's great, man.
Every week, every Sunday,
You
this is
create
the
some
day
content.
to read the news.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Great, great. Okay. Any other words from Pedro, Chila, Luis would like to add here?
Yeah,
All fine.
as expected, I learned a lot from this session. So thank you everyone who shared experience here, and I'm looking forward for the next session. Yeah.
Also, thank
Yeah,
you
thank you,
everyone
everybody.
for listening. Yeah, and I also learned a few things about API first design, so I enjoyed it very much.
Cool.
Thank you. Glad to know that. Thank you. So thank you, everyone.
Cool. So I will finish the session here. Thanks, everyone. I hope to see you guys on the next session. Actually, just a last minute news update is that tomorrow at 8 p.m. in Brazil time, we're gonna be here streaming live with the professor Isidro, a Java champion professor here in the university, and in Brazil, and a consultant speaker as well. He's gonna be talking about fundamentals that you should be know and that will help you solve complex problems. So it will be a very interesting talk. It's a great pleasure to have Java champion here as well to be sharing his knowledge. So if you are interested in it, yeah, tomorrow at 8 p.m. I'm gonna be here.
Actually, 8:30.
Wait, what?
8:30.
7:30. 8:30. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, 8:30. Okay, 8:30. Gonna be here with Professor Isidro. And yeah, I think that's it. Thiago, thanks again for the content. It was amazing to have you here sharing, giving us some preview of the content on the book, and sharing your knowledge about the APIs that everyone have to implement, at least if you work with web applications, right? And that's great to have these many new things. I also learned a lot today.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you to have you here and everyone here. It was really nice to me to have this kind of discussion. And the audience, if you're watching us and you also enjoyed this conversation, please hit the like button. This will help us to keep doing this kind of thing.
Oh, good thing.
Yeah,
So
Like
thank
and
you.
subscribe.
Yeah. So thanks everyone. See you next session. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.
See
Yeah,
you.
like and subscribe so you don't lose anything.
Cool.